Okay. Hello, everybody. It's me, Martin Cross, and I have an extra special guest on Crossy's Corner today. It's the amazing Robbie Manson, world record holder in the men's single sculls, lit up the world of rowing, or has lit up the world of rowing for several years now. And Robbie joins us from New Zealand. Hey, Robbie.
Hey, Martin. How's it going?
Yeah, excellent. Fantastic. I'm so looking forward to talking to you. And just kind of want to start off with how your week's been going, how your day's gone today.
Yeah, it's we're in a fairly solid week of training this week, so the body's feeling it a little bit. And this morning rode 22k in singles, and then had a gym session. So yeah, that went reasonably well. And then went and rode my horse this afternoon, which was fun.
That's amazing. Seeing pictures of you on Instagram with your horse Baz, and that's clearly bringing you a lot of pleasure getting out on the horse again.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. Yeah, it's the highlight of my days at the moment. And this week, the big project has been making him some jumps. So I've made him a couple of jump stands and been painting poles for him. So we'll have some colourful things to look at in his arena soon. So yeah, no, it's been really cool.
You're obviously a pretty competent horseman. I just thinking, like, jumping over horses, I'm thinking, is he worried about falling off or anything like that?
Well, I did actually fall off last weekend, but he, I was opening the gate and shutting it on his back, and he touched the electric fence and jumped sideways. So
I wow!
Fell off him, but luckily I was okay.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So in your single session this morning, is that just you, and is it your doubles partner John Story, or is there a whole bunch of you going out in singles?
Chris Harris in the double, but
I thought you were rowing with John. Sorry, I got that.
No, with Chris. But so this morning there were 3 or 4 of us out in singles, and we all sort of have our own individual zones. So we're sort of out there training together, more or less side by side, but also working on our own individual things as well. So it's sort of this morning split up into a few different waves and groups, but for the most part of the last 3 months, it's been the whole New Zealand men's squad, sweeping and sculling, have been working together in singles and small boats and things. So
yeah. It must be strange, this kind of training, because you're just coming into summer, and it sounds like you're doing, some low intensity stuff. How's the training been since coming back in lockdown? How have the coaches phased it?
So it's actually been quite, it's been quite a good block that we've just had. So we had, I think, about 8 weeks of lockdown in total, and that was from around April, May. I think maybe the end of May, beginning of June, we came out of lockdown and had a month or so back on the water, and then we had a month completely away from the middle of June to middle of July. So we've been back since the 13th of July now. So I think, what's that, 2 or 3 months or so. But yeah, so we've just been training as a men's squad. So everyone's been sort of mixing together, including the coaches. So we've had worked with all of the men's coaches, which has been really cool and refreshing, and just sort of, I guess, really to get morale up and to keep things fresh and interesting. And because it is a really long year, going into Tokyo next year, we sort of have really tried to, I guess, factor that into it.
Yeah. So have you done many pieces up at pace, or high intensity pieces, or have you not had that fun yet in training?
No. As we've done a few sort of lower rate, competitive, and longer distance sort of pieces in training, but yeah, it's mostly just been slow and steady so far.
Yeah. And what have you made about the news around the world in terms of the rowing world? The Europeans probably happening in a couple of weeks' time. The Germans and Dutch eights training full on, and Ollie Zeidler just been in a training camp. I don't know about the Chinese, who'll be your rivals, I think, for gold in Tokyo.
Yeah, I guess it's such a crazy time at the moment, and you never know quite what's going to be just around the corner. So I think the fact that we can still train and keep some normality in what we're doing is really important and really helpful. I guess at the same time, you just got to be ready to roll with the punches, and whatever life and COVID throw at us next, we've got to be there and ready. So yeah, it's cool to see the European champs hopefully going ahead soon, and it'll be good to watch some racing this year, because it's such a long time with with not a lot happening in terms of racing, and I guess it's essentially a whole season just about that we've missed out on.
Yeah. Now you're in the double with Chris, that's right, yeah? So how did that come about? Because that was quite a decision for you after saying you wanted to be in the single in Tokyo.
Yeah, I guess the end of last year, I really wasn't enjoying it, and I didn't have a very good 2019 season. I think I was sort of front of the B final, back of the A final, like throughout the whole season. So I guess I wasn't really enjoying it. I even thought about giving it away, and then was just sort of talking to a few different people, and then realizing that there's a real opportunity there in the double, and both in terms of doing something that would keep it interesting and enjoyable, sort of having a teammate again, which I hadn't for the previous 3 years, but also the fact that Chris and I know a really fast combination. So there was that sort of excitement factor as well that, really I felt last New Zealand summer. So sort of from November onwards, like reinvigorated in a way. And I think both Chris and I, from that point on, PB'd and all of our erg testing we did, and everything. So we were both in amazing shape going into what would have been the 2020 season. The lockdown and everything happened. So in fact, we both did exactly the same score on our 2K erg test to the 0.1 of a split.
Are you allowed to say around about what that was, your 2K?
Around about 550. I won't say exactly what it.
Yeah.
We're both to exactly the same 0.0 of a split or a second, and both PB'd on our 5K erg tests at the beginning of the lockdown that we had here in New Zealand, because we're obviously training on the ergs all the time. So they threw a 5K erg test at us during that. So
what's your preference, 2K or 5K?
I'd say definitely 2K.
Really?
Yeah, I don't tend to do. Well, it's pretty hard to rate 40 for 5K, isn't it? So
is that what you go over your 2K at? Do you do it at 40?
Oh yeah, around about. I think actually the PB that I did at the beginning of this year, I think I actually rate a little bit lower for me, but it's generally around 38 to 40 average finish in the mid 40s, I think.
And mate, so what do you go over the 5K at?
I think around like maybe 32 rate or something.
Oh, so that's much more conservative.
Yeah. I feel like 2K is the right distance for me. Like I'm not explosive at all. So the real sprinty sort of stuff, anything probably less than 1K I'm not great at, but probably anything longer than 2K I'm not very good at either. So it's the ideal distance for me, really.
Now, I know Kiwi crews tend to have a higher cadence, but when you came out in the single in 2017, you kind of blew everyone away by being able to maintain the speed that you could at that kind of rating. So I'm looking at you, I think 38 was quite low for you in terms of, you were up to the second half of the race, 39.40 through 2017, 2018. How did you develop that style of rowing or sculling?
I think it definitely wasn't a conscious thing. I think it was more just an a natural adaptation to try and go faster. I guess didn't have don't have the raw power just to muscle along at a lower stroke rate. So to go faster, naturally, the only thing for me to do was to rate higher and take more strokes. So it wasn't something I was even really consciously aware of. Like I'm not always looking at the stroke coach when I am racing, and I certainly wasn't when I was doing that race in Poznan in 2017.
Yeah.
I was just trying to row as fast as I could, and that was naturally, I guess, what happened and how I ended up and have continued to rate really high.
Well, you know, that was a phenomenal race, that particular race in Poznan, and I wonder what your memories are of that particular race where you basically blew the world's best time apart, and you know, you're still holder of the world's best time, 6:30. What's the point on it? Can you remember? Point what?
0.74.
6:30.74, which is just such a crazy time. I mean, what are your memories of that race?
I think that was just one of those races that everything just goes right, and it just, like, I remember I was slightly slow off the start, and I think I guess could have sort of panicked or whatever, but I had a lot of confidence in how fast I was going in training, and also thought, oh, well, if I'm slow, so I might as well just row my race, which I did, and then eventually started moving back on everyone. But it just, like, I just remember it feeling incredibly easy, and just one of those races which, when everything does click, it just flows, and it does feel easy. And yeah, it was also my very first international race in a single.
Are you kidding?
So
no.
I thought, oh, well, if the singles like this, like, just like, how could it possibly be so easy? And obviously something I found that it's not. It was just, I was in incredible form at that time, and just had one of those races, and that just everything went right.
You had an amazing second 500, because you know you were kind of back in third or fourth, and then through that second 500, 3:16 through the K, you're killing everybody.
Yeah, I think I just again, like, held the same speed the whole way, and I just had that rhythm where I got onto it right from the start, and I think, like, that actually meant that I gave away a little bit out of the start, but because I just got onto that speed and held, locked into that rhythm and held it right the way through, that it looked like I went a lot faster in the second 500. I think it might have been one split faster or something, but it's also a tailwind, and I think the first 500 was a little bit more sheltered, so the wind assistance, it just sort of blew me along a little bit, and I think it was within like one split each 500. So
did you have any idea through that race exactly how fast you were going?
Not really, other than looking at, I looked at my stroke coach in the first 500 actually, and I saw a 1:39, which is slower than world record speed, but they do seem to flicker a little bit. So I guess I just forgot about the speed after that, and just again focused on rowing my own race. So I thought, oh, well, the time's a little bit slower than I thought it might have been. And then the only other time I looked at it was about 500 to go, and I saw a 1:36.
Yeah.
Which I was like, well, that's obviously pretty fast, and didn't know how long I'd been on that, or whether it was just again like an extra fast stroke. But I sort of thought, like, if it might have been around a 6:35 or something, and I thought that I would have been pretty happy with that. So if I just kept my foot down, I could post a fast time sort of around that 6:35 mark, which was about what I was doing at Karapiro before I went over to Europe for those World Cups. So I guess when I looked at the screen, like, afterwards, I was as blown away as I think you were in the commentary. Okay, so, but again, like it didn't take. Like I was pleased I had a good race. Like I won it by much more than I had expected to, or like I just wanted to again like try and win the race or have the best race that I could. So yeah, I guess it takes a while to sink in, and I guess it is like still probably the best race I've had in terms of everything just going absolutely perfectly right. But I guess that's also a hard thing, because then I know that feeling, and then trying to replicate that is also incredibly hard.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. I mean, what were the ingredients that went into that? You know, in terms of your training beforehand, or your mentality, or your flexibility, fluidness. Is that something?
I think like it was just I don't know. It's always so hard to pinpoint exactly what went right or what goes wrong when it doesn't go right, because there's so many factors that go into making up a performance like that. I think my training leading up to it was obviously incredibly good, and it almost came out of nowhere as well. Like I actually had my wisdom teeth out a couple of months before that, and I had 10 days completely off training.
Oh wow!
So that would have been, I think, mid-April, and the World Cup was like mid to late June. So yeah, I had that time completely off with my wisdom teeth. Slowly built back into training over a couple of weeks, and then I raced a Winter Series regatta race here in New Zealand, and had absolutely no expectations going into it, because I just had probably like a month of modified training leading into it. And I came out on the first day, and I think I was third on progs out of the New Zealand squad, which is better than I'd expected. The next day I was third again, but if I'd gone 1 second faster, I would have topped the New Zealand team progs.
Yeah.
And I came out on the last day, and then I did top the progs and like absolutely not expecting that at all. So I think that also gave me a lot of confidence, but that possibly also came from having a bit of a break and actually letting my body rest and recover properly before that. I had a really solid summer, like the New Zealand summer before, and things were going well. I won the Singlet Nationals and had a really good race. But yeah, I think sometimes that time off can really be key.
Yeah. I mean, is there a sense that, because you're not the tallest or the heaviest single sculler, that a lot of what you're doing is to go your speed, you're kind of on a very fine margin or edge. So
yeah,
you have to push yourself.
Yeah, I think. I always say, like, for me to go that fast, like I need to be so technically precise, and it only needs to be off a tiny little bit to make a significant difference. But I think also, like, the training wise as well, it's sort of always being on that balance of really needing to train hard and having a good, solid, consistent training block, but then not pushing it too far over, which I think has happened sometimes as well. So sometimes it's pushing too hard in training and going a little bit too far, or sometimes it's being a little bit underdone as well. So it's a really hard balance to get in terms of the training and physical build up, but then also the technical side of it as well. And then I guess there's also like the mental side of it. And after having that sort of 10 days off and building into it, I think I was almost mentally refreshed and just like excited to go out there and attack it every day. So I think there's a lot of different factors in it.
You weren't tempted to follow that pattern again, have some more teeth out so you could have another 10 off?
I don't really want to pull any more teeth out. Not only because it's not the most pleasant thing to do, but also it probably hurt my bank account more. So I can afford that. But I think definitely it's always a struggle. And I think being in a program like the New Zealand squad, and also like with different coaches a little bit, they probably get as anxious or more anxious than we do about missing training sessions and stuff, and there's that expectation and stuff around the team, and that it was just like a really almost lucky set of circumstances that I had to have that time off, like under doctor's orders and stuff, that I think then possibly put me in like some of the best shape of my life. So
I know after that race, I mean, that probably took quite a bit out of you, even though you said it felt sort of easy and fluid the whole way, because you had to miss the Diamond Sculls at Henley, didn't you?
Yeah, so I think like I even underestimated at the time how much it did take out of me, and because it just, again, it felt so easy, but obviously it wasn't, because then I had all those sort of rib problems afterwards, and I did manage to race Lucerne a few weeks later, but sort of under, like, with a fair bit of duct tape to sort of hold me together, and sort of with like a bit of rib pain and stuff. So I managed to get through it and still had a really good race in Lucerne, but then coming back to New Zealand really suffered because of it. Yeah,
so I mean, I was going to talk about that, because in your second race, you had second race sort of internationally in a single. There's you out, quick time again, sort of 6:40s, conditions not as fast as Poznan, but you're miles in front of, is it Fournier Rodriguez? I think second in that race.
Yeah, I don't remember who was Nico. I think might have been third that time.
Yeah, it might have been the Swiss sculler possibly, but so because one of the things, and I was talking to the guys that I row with who followed your career with a lot of interest, and one of the things they wanted to know was how you explain to yourself the performance at the regattas, because we'll go on to look at 2018 races, but where you're in stunning form, and then the World Championships, where you don't have the results that sort of form would suggest, and how you've kind of explained that to yourself.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know if I had the answers, then I guess it wouldn't, like, ideally always going to the World Champs wanting to win, and very disappointing in 2017 and 18. I think 2017 was, I actually did amazingly well just to make the final, because I'd been out of the boat for about 6 weeks before jumping on the plane to Sarasota. So wasn't in form then at all. And I think obviously went into 2018 World Champs with much higher hopes, and came back to New Zealand and trained probably harder than ever between the World Cups and World Champs. And I think, like, without like realizing it, or trying to put too much emphasis on the World Cups, I think that particularly the third World Cup in 2018, just again that was sort of my race of the season, and I guess spent myself sort of mentally, physically and emotionally sort of to get myself through that race. And again, and probably actually had more pressure on that race than I did at the World Champs.
I think, that's the race you've got. Is that Ollie Zeidler back there, or?
I think Ollie and
or I know was way back, wasn't he?
Yeah, I know Ollie was second, and I think Sinek was third in that one. But again, like, I think without really knowing it at the time, but put so much into that race, and then sometimes the body just says that's enough. And despite coming back to New Zealand and trying to train even harder, I just wasn't able to do what I was even in training, what I was capable of doing in the build up to those World Cup races. So,
oh really?
And I think, like, possibly overdoing the speed work and different things in the lead up to it. But yeah, and like I say, it's sort of, if I knew all the answers, then,
Yeah.
then you wouldn't be asking me this question, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, I find it very frustrating because it was, you know, how you must feel, because as a commentator, it was so exciting to see the way that you were racing. It was so markedly different, and
Yeah,
then it was kind of, I think, you know, from 2017. I know you had the injury that you were getting over then, but
yeah,
certainly 2018, you had a fantastic race in Linz where, you
mm,
know, you were, you know, Zeidler and Tim Olanaska were racing out in
yeah,
front, and you were kind of down for quite a lot of that race, and then,
yeah,
you know, you had this fantastic profile, came through and won,
yeah,
and I just imagined, yeah, this guy's gonna kill everybody at the World Championships.
yeah. I guess like also the way that I race, um, is, well, I guess it's hard on everyone, but yeah, coming down the course at 40 strokes a minute, and there's a lot of, um, I guess it's not always pretty, and yeah, I guess like I do hurt my body a lot to do those performances, and I suppose there's only so many times a year that I'm capable of doing that. Although I'd want to be able to go out there and do it every single time, but I guess on top of that, we're sort of racing in New Zealand sort of all of our summer, and then go over to Europe and race. So it's almost all year round for those
Yeah,
sort of years, like 17, 18, 19, trying to be in pretty close to peak form, and having to sort of do that and rate that high over and over again. And I think eventually it just sort of takes its toll. And I think that's also like partly going back into the double. I think, yeah, I think it's sort of, it's also very hard on your body, but possibly in a slightly different way as
yeah.
being in the single.
What way round is the double? Do you have a preference for where you and Chris sit in that crew?
Yeah, so Chris strokes and I'm bow seat. I think pre 2013, I was like in the men's quad in London, and then 2013 I was in stroke seat of the quad and double. So used to prefer stroke seat, and I think from then on, like I've always preferred bow seat, and just felt a little bit more comfortable, and almost feel like I have a little bit more influence from bow seat and
Yeah.
how the boat's going.
You and Chris have got unfinished business, I guess, from the Olympics in 2016. Because I remember, you know, going into that campaign, I think you had a great result in Poznan before you went to
Yeah.
Rio. But Rio, you were back in the B final, and I think there were issues with that performance, weren't there?
Yeah. So there's a few injury issues and stuff there as well. So that's another reason for wanting to be in the double with Chris as well, as we do both feel like we have that unfinished business, and we know what a fast combination we are. And off our training measures and stuff, we were going a lot faster probably this year as opposed to we were in 2015 and 16. So it's really exciting to be back in the double with Chris, but because of the whole situation we're in, selections are all now null and void, and it's back to not necessarily back to square one, but we've got to retrial again and prove ourselves to be reselected in the double for 2021.
So will that involve a series of singles races again, and racing in doubles for different partners, or is there some of that work that's already been done? You don't have to go through that.
It'll more just be double seat racing, I imagine. We're not 100% sure of what it's going to look like exactly at this stage, but I imagine it'll be quite similar to last year, where we did a lot of seat racing with the whole squad, and sort of worked out who the top four of us were, and then did more seat racing with the top four. So I think that's probably, there's not going to be so much of that. We'll probably just redo sort of like the last stage of it. So although not 100% sure how it's going to work at this stage, but I imagine it'll be just refinalizing what's going on.
And how do you see the doubles internationally? You know, two new crews really last year came up with gold and silver in the
Yeah, I
world?
think it's like it. I think they're all extremely competitive. Like you just will look at the margins across all the events at World Champs. So um, yeah, I think all of the doubles out there are fast, and on a given day or regatta, any crew could step up and perform extremely well. And I guess you see that with the Chinese and the Irish doubles at World Champs last year. Yeah, both like first time crews meddling at World Champs, I think. So yeah, you don't know what's going to happen necessarily. You've just got to respect all of your opposition and know that they're all going to be fast. So I think also Cynic's gone into the double next year as well. So yeah, there's a lot of unknowns, and yeah, not only with how fast the opposition is going to be, but I guess like for us, we don't even know at this stage if we'll get to race any World Cups before Tokyo next year. It may be going straight from New Zealand into it, which I guess has its pros and cons. Like I guess you could come in as the dark horse and fly under the radar, but so could someone else. So yeah, as I guess until we actually get to Tokyo and what ever that's going to look like, we don't really know at this stage. So
yes, something I just wanted to ask you, which I meant to ask you when you were talking about the singles, is technically, if you're at that high rate of striking, where's your focus in order, not to make the boat bounce and stop? How do you do that to rate that high and keep the stern running smooth like that?
I think it's just about being really relaxed and loose, like in the shoulders at the catch, so you can sort of pick up the boat without disturbing it and without being too heavy on it. So yeah, just being really quick and relaxed, and then also around the finish, not trying to do too much. So just thinking of the stroke being sort of legs and body, and I think you can almost see in that race in Poznan, it's like my arms are doing nothing. They're essentially taking the blades out of the water. So I guess it's like really utilizing that middle powerful part of the stroke and sort of not doing too much around either end to really upset it.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly phenomenal to look at the way, what do you think in terms of looking at rowing generally, that, the Australians, 4 was, rating at above 40, although they came unstuck last year at the Worlds. Do you think rating generally, I mean, is that something you might be aware of in the New Zealand squad, that the ratings are rising in general? And what do you make of that?
Yeah, I think everyone's like, it's just getting more and more competitive every year. And I guess people are just trying to adapt to go faster. And that's possibly one of the few areas left to kind of to really go after it. But I guess you're always going to get different styles, and yeah, I know there are a lot of crews rating particularly high at the moment. So I think part of that comes from like technical proficiency as well. And I've also had races like this year at the World Champs where I've probably been rating higher than ever, but not going faster for it. So rating is not necessarily the key. It's almost like resorting to rating because you're desperate to sort of try and move the boat. So you have to be really technically proficient within that. But yeah, it is, if you're already maxed out in everything you're doing physically, I guess one of the few ways to go faster is to rate higher.
Yeah. Now, let's maybe, people might not be so familiar with how you actually came into the sport of rowing, but you came from a bit of a rowing family background.
Yeah, so mum and dad both rowed. Dad actually went to the World Champs in Harswinkle in 1985 in the lightweight single. And mum and dad both won like numerous national titles in New Zealand. So they met rowing and have a very much a rowing background. And then my older brother and I actually rode horses when we were younger. So that was our sport, and that was sort of the path I wanted to take. And then it was only because Carl, my younger brother, had started rowing that I thought, oh, I'll go and give it a go. I thought that it'd make me fit and I'd get abs and I'd have abs for life and look really good. And I guess also I'm like quite competitive with Carl as well. So him getting fitter and stronger than me, I wasn't too keen on. So even though he is a lot physically stronger than I am, but I guess he didn't really find that out until we started rowing. But yeah, I guess that was sort of the I guess what initiated it is Carl taking up the sport. Mum was coaching him. We actually also always used to drive to the pony club with the horse float on the back and drive over the river that we Wairau River where we row on, and Mum would always say, oh, look at that water, wouldn't it be good to go for a row now? And we'd just roll our eyes at her. So yeah, I guess always used to sort of wind mum and dad up saying, oh, I'm never going to row. And yeah, quite adamant about that. So it was, yeah, only the Carl sort of starting that initiated it for me. And then I think like I guess like I enjoyed the feeling of being out on the water and rowing, but I guess also I'm quite competitive as well. So once I started it, I wanted to get a lot better and had some good results. So I really liked with rowing that the harder you train, the more work you put in, the better your results. And in equestrian, you're relying on an animal which you can't always communicate with as well as you'd like to. So and I guess like we didn't have a lot of money growing up either. We really struggled to have the horses and to do as much as we did do. So it's a very expensive sport. So I guess that was always a struggle, that we couldn't afford the best horses or to be going to all the shows and doing as much as I wanted to do with that. So well, here's a sport that I can excel at by training harder as opposed to spending more money or that sort of thing. So yeah, and then sort of had my first sort of taste of success, and then that really spurred me on to train harder and harder and yeah, do some crazy things to try and get good at rowing.
And you rowed in the under-23s with your brother Carl.
Yeah. So I rowed with Joseph Sullivan in the double in 2009, and then with Carl in the double in 2010.
Did you win that year in 2009?
Yeah, we did. That was my first international race. So
that's pretty cool. Yeah,
a nice way to start.
So, so I'm just wondering, talking about your mum or your dad being big influences on you, do you see your personality as sort of equally matched between your mum or dad, or are you more like one or the other?
I don't know. I like to think that have little bits of both, but I guess in terms of rowing and probably fairly similar to dad, but yeah, I guess like I like to think that I have picked up good qualities from both of them.
Yeah, people look at personalities as, you know, an introversion preference or an extroversion preference. Where would you put yourself on that scale?
Yeah, I'd say definitely an introvert.
Really?
I'd say possibly an introvert, like an introverted extrovert. So like I'd like to be an extrovert, but definitely tend to be more of an introvert. But it depends on the what I'm doing and who I'm around as well. So I think like I can adapt a little bit.
Yeah. So how does that get you? Because I know in New Zealand there must have been a lot of publicity when you had those series of races to be the New Zealand single against Mahe Drysdale, and him being such larger than life personality in a lot of ways in New Zealand. How did that affect you?
Yeah, I guess like I'm like never the biggest fan of the media. I sort of like to keep my head down and do the work, and sort of not like I guess I like to let my rowing do the talking, or do my talking on the water. Like I don't want to go chasing after the media and making a big story out of something. Like I prefer to just get on and do it. So I guess it's part of what comes with it, but I wouldn't say like I love the media side of it, but it's also got its benefits as well. So I guess like it's definitely helped my like profile as well, having those sort of having that media attention and stuff around the single and the selection and stuff. But I guess definitely pros and cons, I'd say.
Are you a bit of a media star in New Zealand, or is it not like that? I mean, rowers sort of, don't have that much of a sort of profile.
I guess like probably very low key. Like I think like possibly compared to other countries, like rowing is very highly regarded in New Zealand, and being one of the most successful Olympic sports here in New Zealand, like I'd say the rowers definitely have some profile and like does get a fair amount of coverage as opposed to a lot of European countries. I suppose they're probably a little bit underrepresented in the media. So I'd say we're lucky in terms of that here, is that the media do really like to follow rowing and get behind the team. So
Now I've got a mate who finds you, such an inspiration to look at, and your, in terms of your achievements in the sport. And he's gay, and he really admired, what you were doing as almost, I wouldn't say like a spokesperson, but in terms of taking a sort of, I guess, brave decision to come out. How aware are you of being kind of, an inspiration and an icon to people like that?
Yeah, I guess it's something that didn't really happen intentionally, but I'm really pleased and proud that I can be able to represent that. So, like I obviously came out to my friends and family a couple of years before I did an article for Outsports. So I was like very like it, before I came out, it's something I was very insecure about and sort of really uncomfortable talking about or sharing. But then by the time that I did write that article, I'd been out for a couple of years and sort of fully comfortable and accepted it and everything. And I wrote this article thinking that no one would really see it. But it might be something that someone who's in my position might read, and so it might help one or two people out there. So that was my motivation, is to sort of share my story, and certainly didn't think it would get the amount of attention that it did. And like, would have I done it if I knew that it would have? Like, it's not something that I'm worried about or shy away from. But I guess, like I was saying before, I am more of an introvert, and sort of it is sharing a lot of yourself. But I think on the other side, like it is really cool to be able to be that person for someone, because I obviously had people who I look up to, other athletes who had come out before I did, so they made it easier for me. And if I can make it easier for someone else, then that's something that's pretty cool and pretty special. To be able to do. So and I think like I don't try and do anything special as well. Like I'm just living my life and doing what I do, and it's something that I'm open about. And it's I guess in a way that's a good thing as well, is that like it isn't anything like it's not a big deal, like and it almost should be made a big deal about it. It's just like, this is who I am, this is a part of me, a thing about me, and then I get on with my life. And I think that's almost the best way to be, is sort of, it is, because it isn't a big deal and it shouldn't be made to be like that.
It's very inspiring, I think, to see your story. You mentioned there about role models. I mean, who are your role models in sport?
I guess in sport in general, Rob Waddell is definitely one of my biggest role models, and just not only that he was an absolutely incredible athlete, but he's just the most amazing human being as well. Like such a great and inspiring role model, and he's the chef de mission of the Olympic team now, and he's got time for everyone in the Olympic team. He's sort of doesn't matter who you are and what sport you do. He's sort of like just very caring, very genuine, and just an absolutely amazing leader with just so much respect from everyone. So and also what he's done, like in rowing and in sailing and sort of everything he turns his hand to, he seems to be amazing at. So I think Rob Waddell for sure. And that's actually one of my first memories, or clear memories, of the Olympics, is watching him win a single in Sydney when I was 10 years old. So before I was rowing myself. So it was the only gold medal New Zealand won at that Olympics. So it was pretty even though I was more into equestrian then, and I was glued to the TV for the 2 weeks of the Olympics, mostly watching the equestrian, but also watching the rowing, partly because it was New Zealand's best, and I think at that point only chance left to sort of win gold. But also mum and dad were very keen on following the rowing as well.
Are you like, I mean, I guess you're a full-time professional rower. I was kind of going to ask you, a couple of things. What do you do? Is there anything? I know you ride your horse outside of rowing, which is, one thing. But are you planning to stay in the sport post Tokyo 2021?
I'm still unsure. Like, just trying to get through this year at the moment. But not sure what's around the corner. But I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do when I finish rowing. At the moment, I'm supposed to be studying a PT course to be a personal trainer.
Oh, really?
Say supposed to, because I keep getting distracted by all my side hobbies. So also been doing a lot in the garden lately. So
what like?
So I made a veggie garden. Is the most recent project. So mum and I bought a house in Cambridge together about June last year. It was about 10 days before we went to Europe for 3 months that we moved in. So sort of very torn to be going overseas last year, when I was sort of like leaving my brand new house behind. And when I got home from Europe last year, I did a lot of gardening then and landscaping around the place, and then pretty much ran out of money, and then get into the full swing of training again, and you don't have much energy to be doing too much outside of rowing. So then it's just like the last month or so I've been doing a bit more in the garden, and made a new veggie garden, and sort of like extended the landscaping around the back of the house further. So I guess another one of my side hobbies. But also during lockdown here in New Zealand, I've got a sewing machine as well, so I got that out and started making a few pairs of shorts. So
you're kidding?
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Who knows? I guess I really don't know what I'm going to end up doing when I finish rowing. I feel like I've got a lot of things that I'm interested in doing, but until I actually do them, I don't know.
Yeah. What's your age now, Robbie, if you don't mind me asking?
Sorry?
What's your age now, if you don't mind me asking?
Now.
You're 30?
Yeah.
That's so young.
Oh. You're old.
So you've got options by the sounds of things.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. So I don't know if you got you heard some of the news from the GB rowing setup, but there was quite a big fuss here with the news that Jürgen Grobler had retired.
Yeah.
And I wonder what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, I guess it's obviously a huge loss to the GB team, because he's been such an influential coach with amazing results for what is it, been over 20, 30 years now?
Yeah, since 1990, really.
Yeah. So it's a huge loss obviously for the team, but he's had an amazing career, and good on him. Like, I guess I don't know, you know when it's time to do something different and enjoy life in a different way.
Yeah, I think there was kind of, on the one hand, the announcement that he's retired. I'm not sure it was as simple as that. I'm not sure if he really wanted to retire and there wasn't other
Yeah.
stuff
Okay.
going
Yeah,
on.
I don't know enough about it to know everything that's going on. But yeah, no, I just think he's had an amazing career and obviously been a huge part of the success of the British team for such a long time.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about the guys that's coached you, you've been coached by people like Noel Donaldson and Calvin. Is it Calvin Harris? I forget his surname.
Calvin Ferguson.
Ferguson, yeah. Sorry,
Yeah,
Calvin.
I rode the double with.
Yeah, yeah. So, how do you get on with your coaches? I mean, what do you look for in a good coach, and what sort of relationship?
I'd say that I think I feel like I've got a pretty good relationship with all the coaches I've had, and feel like I can definitely take something away from every coach I've had, and everyone, like, I think every coach has got their individual like strengths and weaknesses. So I think it is quite different to like working with different coaches, but yeah, you definitely gain things from having that sort of insight. And like I was saying, at the moment we've been rotating around the 4 coaches in the men's squad at the moment, and just having that input from different people and a different set of eyes, possibly even saying the same thing but in a slightly different way, is very helpful.
Yeah, really. Ian Weir has asked a question, and probably heard us talk about Jurgen Grobler. It's a bit of a big question, so I don't mind if you duck it. But who would you hire to replace Jurgen Grobler if you were the person in charge of GB rowing? If the world's your oyster.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I don't know. I feel like there's so many options, and I don't. Yeah. Until you actually sit down and see who's in front of you and interview them, I guess, and then again, like each coach is different, and I think different coaches work better with different athletes as well. So
yeah, do you look at particular crews, like when you go to World Championships, say, and you like to look at particular crews paddling along, or the style of rowing? Is there any sort of crew or sculler that you're drawn to on their style?
I love watching the German men's 8. Yeah, because they're so smooth. I don't know. I guess I wouldn't say there's anyone in particular that like it possibly, like in the past, like watching a lot of rowing videos growing up and when I was younger, like there'd be ones like Zach Purchase, particularly. I think I got into rowing around like the end of 2005, beginning of 2006, which is when Zach Purchase won the lightweight single at the World Champs in Eton in 2006. And I think that's the race that really stands out to me, and I actually go back to a lot to see the way he rode then, because I think that is one of the most flawless exhibitions of single sculling. So there's sort of ones like that. I think also the French men's double who won the Athens Olympics is another one. So, and also like videos of Zeno rowing in like 96 and 2000. So like there's definitely one. Another one is Thomas Langer as well. So like those are the ones that I like to really go back and watch. I guess like when you're paddling around at World Champs and World Cups and stuff, you don't always get to, unless you're sitting on the bank, which you don't always get to see a lot. But I do always enjoy watching the German men's 8.
Me too. I love that too. Hopefully we're going to talk to Richard Schmidt in the next few weeks or so. So I'm just wondering what you make of the men's singles in terms of Tokyo, because you're in an ideal position to look at that. There's been, that final race was one of the most exciting races of the World Championships of recent years, and there's quite a few candidates up there for the gold medal or to win a medal in that event.
Yeah, I think I feel like it's anyone's game because of how close it is, and I'd say Ollie with like another, by then possibly 2 years under his belt, could be pretty hard to beat. But then the other guys like Spheri and Shettle as well are very fast, and like any one of them on their day, I think could have it. So
yeah, and I gather one of the guys in that final last year, his name's just gone. The Dutch sculler, Stefan Bruining. Sorry, just came back. He's now probably going to be one of your competitors.
Yeah, I think like for this year, I think he was supposed to be back in the double. So it'd be interesting to see if that's still the case next year. Which
double is going to be a really hot event.
Yeah, and I'd say no, like I'm not going into the double because I think it's easier or anything. Like it's such a tight competitive event, and I haven't raced in it for 3 years. So I don't know. I think like for me, the reasoning is like really enjoying rowing with Chris, and I think we are a very fast combination, and I'm excited for what we can do. But it's like, again, men's sculling, or all of the events in categories are so competitive that who knows, anyone on their day.
Yeah. Another question I had for you, you might have already answered this, but it was, if you got a day or a couple of days completely off the rowing, how would you spend your time?
With Baz.
What is it that gives you being with a horse, a personality like Baz, and going through your paces on the horse? What is that gives you that rowing perhaps doesn't?
I think there are actually a lot of similarities. Like with a horse, when you do get it going well, you sort of have that relaxation, and I don't know, just the movement of it is actually, I think, very similar to rowing. When you get the movement right, you're sort of very relaxed, you're moving with the boat, it's sort of very flowing, and I guess you get that sort of endorphin, or those endorphins from feeling good about what you're doing. So I think it's actually very similar on a horse. When you get it going well, you have a similar sort of feeling. But I think for me, it's at a much more sort of basic level on a horse as opposed to rowing, but it's still something I get a lot of enjoyment out of. And I think it's also that sort of being with an animal, it's almost like therapy in a way, I guess. So it's like my therapy animal, to just sort of go and unwind, and you give him a treat and he absolutely loves you. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. So no, it's pretty cool.
When's the next time you'll go and ride Baz?
So I rode him today, but he might have tomorrow off because I've got a couple of hard training sessions and not as much time in between. And then as the weather looks a bit miserable as well, so I think Friday might be the next time I go for a ride. Yeah. I've got some more jumps to paint, so I might go and paint some of the jumps.
That's pretty cool. Just, you talked about training there. One of the questions I've been asking people is in terms of their mentality and so on, what's the hardest training session they've ever done?
I think anything that's sort of really high intensity intervals. So in 2018, before the World Champs, I think Noel had us doing, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off on the erg, and then I think it went to 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off. And I think we'd do it like 10 times and then repeat that 3 times or something. So that was just one of the hardest sessions to get through, I think, because it's absolute max. And then, it's definitely one of the most painful and hardest to get through. But probably, like for me, one of my least favorite sessions is low rate or capped rate long distance pieces, because I'm I don't know, obviously like in a 2K race, I rate it a lot higher than other people do. So when I'm capped on a set rate, I feel very sort of held back and sort of can't go as fast as I'd like to. And also being longer distance, so not the best at that. So it'd probably be more of a frustrating session for me.
Yeah, I wonder, we'll draw this to a close shortly, Robbie, but I just wonder, in terms of if you've got any words of advice for a man of your size and shape and starting out in running, just how to make it, really.
I think like I don't know, just train hard, really. If you do the work, I guess like that's sort of like the mentality that I sort of started out with, and sort of very early on. So like I did my first rowing season, and then in the first off season, I was doing like 90-minute ergs 3 times a week. Just like, because I'd started rowing a little bit later than other guys my age, sort of racing against them at school and stuff. So I was a couple of years behind. So I thought I've got to catch up somehow. So yeah, do 90 minutes on the erg 3 times a week all winter, and then every other day I'd be out rowing or biking or doing something. And then as a second year rower, I won the under 18 single at the South Island schools champs and stuff. And like I went from being a nobody or like a novice rower the year before to being like one of the more competitive in my age group as a second year rower. So I think it's just do the work. So, and also if you row technically well, so that was something that I've always been really keen on, and studying videos and stuff, and like particularly early on how I wanted to row. So
I know that was really intriguing to hear you talk about, role models and looking at different sort of inspirations in terms of great scullers of the past, technicians. It's really interesting, because you're obviously a man with a special gift in the sport. I mean, whatever happens, nobody really, there is nobody like you as a single sculler in the world of rowing. I know, you haven't had the results in world championships that you might like to have done, but you've basically left a mark on the sport, which will be there for all time.
Yeah, I guess like it's always, the races you don't win are always disappointing. But then I would like to think that when I do choose to move on from rowing, that I am proud of the successes that I have had, and the races that I have had and have won. And I guess, I don't know, some of them, like for me, have been pretty special. So
wow,
been pretty cool. I think Robbie, like the race that sort of really stands out is the final of the double in 2015 with Chris, and that we sort of came behind and then rode through the German double with Marcel Hacker right on the line, and it was such a hard fought medal, and we only sort of just got it. And in that regatta as well, we only just, like, it was such a tight race in the semi-final as well, that it was a photo finish, I think, between the Aussies, us, and the Italians. It might have been just to make the final. And then I guess we were stoked to be in the final to qualify for the Olympics, and then to come away with a medal and in such a tight margin as well. I think like that's definitely a pretty special memory as well.
I hope you're going to have a lot more special memories in the sport of rowing and beyond, Robbie. Thank you very much for talking to Crossy's Corner. You've been an absolute star.
Yeah, thank you very much, Martin.